Sky Priestess, and welcome to this Valentine special video. Normally, I don't do Valentine special videos because it is a hallmark celebration in many ways. I'm sure it has some ancient roots somewhere, but the way it's been commercialized and popularized takes it very, very far away from that. That being said, Valentine's Day this year coincides with a couple of key astrological alignments that have a lot to do with love, intimacy, romance, and all of that kind of stuff. So I figured, why not? So having said that, let's get into the material, but I'm just going to check and see if I am, okay, we go. We see someone here and we see a comment. We are okay. That's great. That's great. All right. So let's get into it. I see one person and one comment, so I know I'm streaming. And let's look at what we can look at today. So in astrology, romance, love, relationships is one of the trickiest things for people who use astrology as a means of divination, or in fact any methodology of divination. They have issues with this. Now obviously you're going to find some people that others will swear by, and then you're going to find people like me who have a fairly high degree of accuracy and truth who are not going to make such predictions. Simply because when it comes to love and relationships, you can't predict what's going to happen. Simply because we are collectively entering an age in which we are being asked to respect the frequencies of the new that are coming in. These frequencies keep challenging us to further our relationship with truth, however you define it. And so when you operate at that level of consciousness and being in a relationship, you cannot predict an outcome. It is irresponsible to do so because free will is not something that you can predict. Having said that, I see that young Josh has decided to use his free will to disturb his elder sister at this time, and he is a good example of one who does not get it yet, which is the growling in the background. So having said that, in terms of what astrology can teach you about relationships is where you are likely to experience certain pitfalls, certain patterns of relating that are not so great for your highest and deepest good, certain ways of being that don't actually take you out of karmic cycles, but rather back into them. And that also depends on the level of consciousness and the awareness of the astrologer. Because God knows the one time I really needed help and turned to astrology, astrology failed me completely. Every reading and prediction I got was so off the mark in retrospect. It's one of the reasons why I, in my practice, do not make the kinds of romanticized, often patriarchal, often rose-tinted interpretations of key bodies to do with love and marriage in my own practice. Now, one of the biggest culprits involved in this is Eros. And if you look at almost every website, almost every writing or teaching or interpretation of Eros, you're going to find it as intimacy, love is in the air, and of course Eros is Cupid. You know, he's the dude who shoots the arrows, and that's a big part of the Valentine's Day symbology. But if you actually look at the mythology of Eros and Psyche, what you see is someone who had the ability to magically induce karmic compulsions in people and to make them feel as though those compulsions were binding. Not every arrow was actually, here we go, Josh, calm down. Josh gets really, really triggered. I've noticed it. Anytime I really start getting into things, Josh gets super triggered because there's a lot of karma he has to work through. But either way, he's a part of the process. So as I was saying, Eros, when we look at the mythology of things, often shot his arrows as part of a background deal with some other god, or to obtain something, and in some case the arrow, he accidentally shoots himself with his own arrow, and that ends up as the whole Eros Psyche thing. But it's not about free will in those cases. It's about romanticized karma. Now, 7 years ago, I wrote an article called, hang on, I'll find the specific name for it. I just emailed this out to my 23 group, but it suited the season and what we are experiencing right now. 7 years ago, I wrote an article called Tracing the Path of Cupid's Arrow. the romanticization of woundedness in relationship dynamics. And, it is, yeah, I see a comment which I will get to, and that is a very good comment. And this same pattern continues. I'm not going to say there's no such thing as a soulmate. I'm not going to say there's no such thing as a twin flame. It's just that even at the spiritual level, even for people who have spent years on the path, it is very tricky to make those statements when you begin to understand the nature of spirituality and the way it is urging us to shift our relationship with karma. What I could have called a soulmate 20, 30 years ago now would look like a wound mate, would look like a karmic connection that needed to be cleared. So things keep evolving. And our language of love and what love is vis-a-vis spirituality and astrology must also evolve. Otherwise, it is an antiquated concept that needs to be binned. Now, when Eros does come up, and it does come up in this next couple of days, and that's one of the reasons I'm talking about this, people can feel very strong compulsions to others. Eros right now is at 7 degrees of Capricorn, I believe, and it's going to be aspecting bodies like Pholus, bodies like the North Node, and bodies like Jupiter in the next couple of days. You can get full details if you're part of the Tier 23 program in the write-up, but I'll just give it to you in an encapsulated form here. So 13th of February, the North Node trines Eros. We also see Pholus conjuncting Eros on 14th of February, the 14th here. 15th of February, we see Jupiter squaring Eros. So Eros is giving us the opportunity to discern between impulses and compulsions that have come from the collective and also things that have come through the generational line, such as patterns that run through families where a man chooses a particular type of woman. In this day and age, of course, we can be a lot more sensitive with the pronouns. However, in more heteronormatively oriented societies, it tends to follow this way. Or vice versa. A woman has a particular type of man that she goes for, and her mother has gone for, and her grandmother has gone for, and so on and so forth. Obviously, that applies, especially in different ways if you see gender as a spectrum. But effectively, these kinds of patterns can be pushing people towards others in very strong ways at this time. Now, if you are on a similar path as I am, you're going to be looking at these compulsions to go, well, you know what? Maybe my grandmother and great-grandmother thought that was the epitome and highlight and ideal of what masculinity or femininity looked like, but maybe that's not for me. And when you actually are able to look at these karmic compulsions, especially as they do vis-a-vis an idealized image of another, that's when you actually start your self-work on this point. Now, people can, of course, go headlong, head over heels, straight into Eros, and they do things and they generate karmic cycles and they go, oh, it was destiny, it was fate. No, it was not, it was choice. So you have the ability to choose, to take a step back, to decide, do I want to go into this or not? And in some cases, you might know it's a hook, there are red flags, and you might still want to do it anyway. And it's still, even if you do choose to do that, remember that it is a choice. It is not something that is forced upon you. So at this time, you got to be looking at how Eros is pushing our instincts and our desires towards, especially in Capricorn, established ideals of what success, what a partner, what a relationship looks like, and how it should look good in the eyes of society. So it need to be very, very awake and aware about right now. And if you're not in a relationship and you're not looking for one, that's fine. You can still find these idealizations in your own head if you have not cleared them out yet. So have a look and bear all of this stuff in mind. On a positive note, if you do find something or someone that actually brings you to a deeper space of intimacy with yourself and in connection with another, more power to you. But make sure there are no hidden strings attached. Eros can look like it's gold, but at the same time, it can also just be a flash in the pan. And you spend endless hours or months or years looking at what caught your interest, first of all. Could just be one of those karmic arrows, which really is not part of your free will or necessarily part of your path. Now, that's point number one. Point number two, we also see a heavy activation to Venus at this time. Venus is at 23 degrees of Pisces. Now, Pisces, as you should know, if you've been following me for a while. Pisces can mean many things. Other astrologers in the past used to consider it the dustbin of the zodiac because anything they didn't understand went into Pisces. Energy stuff, Pisces. Hidden dimensions, Pisces. Karma, Pisces. Past life stuff, Pisces. So it kind of just sits there. And of course, even in these domains, there are huge extremes. There is, of course, that quality of Pisces that can be very transcendent, that can be very miraculous, that can be something that heals you in a powerful and fulfilling way. And of course, there's also the side of Pisces that is stuck in the karmic muck, you know, valorizing itself for being a martyr and being passive aggressive about the whole thing, or trying to escape from everything that it's feeling and going into cycles of addiction and obsession or disassociation, all of the above. That's also Pisces. So Venus in Pisces, again, it's a spectrum of interpretation. You can find relationships and connections, or if you're already in one, aspects of that relationship or connection that are inspiring, that do bring you closer to spirit, that come through music, through art, through meditation, through energy work and facilitation. You can find very strong positive experiences if you are willing to look at what is actually there, not at what you are, not what you want to see, but what is actually there. Because Pisces is also famous for illusion and equally disillusionment when the illusion is broken. Which is why it is, I'm not even going to call it a double-edged sword. It's more like a soup in which everything is floating at this time. So Venus at 23 degrees Pisces trines Typhon at 23 degrees of Scorpio with Psyche. Now, Psyche is, of course, mythologically speaking, the counterpart to Eros. She's the one the arrow gets shot at. And I remember someone trying to romanticize Psyche to me when they heard me talking about it. I said, so this kid was basically carried off, kept in the dark, not allowed to see who her husband was, who basically made her think he was some kind of a monster. And when she finally, listening to her sisters who are saying shit and she doesn't really know what's going on, she finally tries to see who he is. He runs off, making her feel like shit. She goes into the underworld, gets beaten basically and tortured by her mother-in-law, and then has to go and rely on a whole bunch of entities to make sure she gets out of the underworld safely. And when she finally gets out, going through all of that stuff, she uses some of the balm that she should have been getting for Aphrodite in the first place. And then she kind of goes into like a death-like sleep. Very beautiful, but, death-like sleep. And then Eros makes a deal with Zeus, who brings her to the pantheon anyway. And she went through all of that BS. Because one guy had breathtaking mother issues and was playing with magic and needed to, in that context, man up. So no, this is not at all a great model for relationships, and anyone who tells you otherwise has not read it properly or has seen what they want to see in it. If you're going to look at mythology, go to the original source. They do not beat around the bush. They tell you. She was afraid he was a monster. What kind of an ideal of love is that? So Psyche at this time is with Typhon. Typhon was a great serpentine being that is said to reside beneath Mount Etna. And Typhon is active in the skies from an astrological perspective. As I said in my previous video, it is also a basis for the powerful earthquakes that we have seen recently. There's probably more dimensions to that, but at least as part of my Tier 23 group, when I talk about Typhon, this is one of those red flag things that I do tend to indicate. So Typhon with Psyche in Scorpio is trining Venus. What does that tell you? It means that you are going to be given the opportunity to really think about what it is you are doing. Why are you doing what you're doing? What are you being propelled by? Is this karma? Is this deception? Is this illusion? Is this a choice that you have actually made? Is it some pattern of ancestral baggage that you have not yet let go of? This is what is coming up right now. So this Valentine's is not just going to be about roses and chocolates and candy and hearts and all that is nice stuff, but you got to use the energy ideally to see what are the roots of this connection. Where does it come from? Is it something that's actually going to help your soul in the long run and that of the other person? Or you're just going to hold hands and kind of go, why am I being blocked in my spiritual growth? And then, See what I mean? So there's a lot of things that can happen here. Now, on top of all of this, all right, I'm not done. 15th of February, we see Neptune with Venus and Okyrhoe trine Psyche. Now, Neptune is, it's Piscean energy. Huge spiritual gateway is with Venus at the same very close degrees to each other, and Okyrhoe, whom I also talked about previously, and she is essentially the feminine mystic that got her voice silenced because people didn't want her wisdom, because feminine mystic that got her voice silenced because people didn't want her wisdom because it was inconvenient for the patriarchy of the day. So this is what is coming up in the energy that has to do with our relationships, our connection to spirituality, and our connection with the sacred aspects of the feminine that is beyond the concept of binary gender. There's the feminine in everything and everyone. It's not just about women. So you got to look at all of these different dimensions that are coming up at the same time, which are being aspected by Psyche and Typhon at this time. If you have anything near 23, 24 degrees of Cancer, huge emotional explosions are possible. And it's something that can actually help you go far, far, far deeper than you thought possible. Again, if you're willing to look at the truth, if you're willing to unearth what needs to be unearthed. What we also see is Venus, Neptune, and Okyrhoe also sextile Hylanome. Hylanome is an interesting one, and I journeyed with her for several years. Hylanome in mythology basically kills herself on the spear that her partner, Cylarus, dies on. He doesn't look where he's going, he runs into a spear and dies. And Hylanome basically impales herself on that spear because she loves him so much. Now, in practical day-to-day matters, more often than not, Hylanome indicates very strong patterns of codependency, where you're literally willing to erase, harm, hurt, torture yourself because of the expectations of another person. Josh doesn't like that statement. Josh needs to learn this lesson. But Hylanome can also bring up very, very legitimate grief surrounding the death of a loved one, whether it's this life or even a previous life. And we are back. Got somewhere deep, and then the connection was like, I can't take it. But we are back. So Hylanome can also be about kind of love where you and the other are no longer separate. And a lot of people romanticize this when they think they've met their twin flame soulmate, da, 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 da. But when you are actually one with another being, there's no more you and me. If that one dies, the other one is going to follow because it's almost like you're connected with the same heart. And that level of conscious union, which is not an entanglement and which is not a pathological form of codependency, that's rare, but that can also come up. So there's very powerful energy that can occur if you've got anything near 23 degrees of Leo, because that will form a powerful yod or a finger of fate between Venus, Neptune, Okyrhoe, Hylanome. And all of this is again giving us the opportunity to find expressions of love that are in alignment with our spiritual path and spiritual journeys. And this is not going to be easy for everyone, because some people do not want to confront the issues or the deeper truths which form the foundation of their relationship. Now, relationships that are going to survive will pass that questioning, and you will find ways to mutually grow and align. And relationships which have difficulty at this, maybe one person wants to put in the effort and the other does not, you got to look at whether or not it's actually worth it. Bear in mind that for example, the ancient Greeks, but also other ancient civilizations, had many different terms for the different types of love that you can have. It's not just romance. There's love for your family, love for your community, love for your planet, love for yourself, love for your friends. These are all very, very important aspects of the relationship that Venus represents. And they all tend to be fractals of each other anyway. But as a quick note, Just because, even though there's so much high potential here for transformation and finding beauty and healing through relationships, of course, on February the 15th, well, we have the moon in Sagittarius forming a grand mutable cross with Mars, the great attractor, Nessus, and Thereus. So February 15th, whilst all of this very tender, delicate work and joy is possible, we still need to be looking at, Thereus and what kinds of back doors may be more activated at this time. So sometimes when you see someone who is so deep in their own delusions, the best thing you can do is to say nothing at all. Because for some people, their entire identity is wedded to that delusion. And unless you're going to help put them back together step by step, bit by bit, the best thing you can do is nod and go, okay, and just walk in a different direction. Remember that this is work that you can do for yourself. You cannot force another person to choose this or to want this. And you have to continue on your own path and journey, ideally speaking, which aligns with truth and what you understand as spirit. The best that we can do is to continue our work so that those who are around us are inspired by us and want to do the same. That's how change happens. Humans copy each other. That's just what we do. That's the basis of so much of socialization and enculturation. Humans copy each other. If you see someone that you respect, you love, you care about, putting the effort to find deeper levels of love for the self, love for the planet, love for their friends, love for their family, love for their romantic partners where appropriate, you're going to be inspired to do the same. And if you are the human who is doing all of this, fantastic. And bear in mind, fur babies for me are already automatically in the family section, but some people may also need that to be spelled out as well. So, or feather babies, whatever type of babies you have. So there's a lot of opportunity now. But again, we need to be very clear about where we are going and whether this direction, frequency, path that we are walking on actually aligns with the truth of who we are or not. The clearer you are with that, the clearer your path is going to be to you. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy, but it's going to show you the road that you do need to take for you to actually find some semblance of happiness. So that's what I wanted to say with respect to the Valentine special. Again, you can look up my old article, and I read it. It still tracks, tracing the path of Cupid's arrow, the romanticization of woundedness in relationship dynamics, which I wrote in 2016. I was kind of laughing a bit at that, but yeah, I'd say it covers a lot of what is said here. And also a quick shout out, the special that I have going on is going to, for February 23. The deadline is within the next 19 hours or so. So if you are planning on making the most of the special coupon that I have for this month, please book your session ASAP. Having said that, now I will look at the comments and I'll interact and engage with all of you, which is something I really enjoy doing. So good work listening. So let's see who's here. I see Queen Star Sophia, I see Ada, I see you, hello, I see Adrienne, Naomi, Whole Soul, followed by Angel, Lisa, I'm reading your comments as well, Cannonball, Nietzsche, Victoria, my Paddington friend who's Dawn. We bonded over Paddington. It's a great movie. If you haven't watched it, watch it. Charles, lovely to see you. Alicia, Radha, I see lots of familiar faces. So do you have so much? So far I see agreement and a lot of nodding, because I am sure all of you have had to consider this question in your lives in different ways. So I do want to come back to a comment that Angel wrote. I wish more people were more aware of the fact that a majority of magnetic connections are spiritual, bonded by sex. It gets serious. This is absolutely true. Sex is a very powerful bond, as of course is childbirth. So whilst, you can't exactly clear the energy of your child away, except in extremely severe and serious cases, which which very, very, very rarely happen, but, and even that it takes a lot of work. But in most cases, what you would end up clearing is any and all energetic residue that you may experience, that everyone has when they're in some kind of sexual encounter with another. And more often than not, we actually do recreate certain karmic cycles in our lives because of sacral areas, sacral energy centers that have not been cleansed and that have not really been facilitated. We get so much of facilitation, especially in this day and age. A lot of people are talking, they're thinking about it, they're identifying patterns. There's a lot of mental work up here. But we got to understand that the body and the sexual energy centers hold a lot of memory and a lot of trauma from the ancestral line, yes, but also from past lives. So that is something that you do need to work on if you do find yourself constantly in a particular pattern. So that is a very good point that was inspired by Angel's comment. Thank you for that. Other, my dear friend, says, oh, the twin flame narrative gets my goat. I've seen people go through a world of heartbreak, pursuing something they label a twin flame relationship, and end up not being able to be in something healthy with that particular person. This is why I never use that language. Anytime anyone has tried to use that language with me, it has basically just turned into a turd. It just does not work. Not saying it doesn't exist. I have wonderful soulmates in my life, but it doesn't need that language. It is what it is. But the moment you try to use that label to justify a relationship and to justify putting up with shit in a relationship you shouldn't, that's when people get trapped. A lot of people are trapped in relationships because of the mental constructs that they have used. It's called spelling. Literally means spell. It's in the word. So be very, very clear with the words that you do use. Another good point by a member of this community. I see Mackie, I see Sunny, I see Red Goddess Tarot, I see Lydia. I've already said hi to Michi, but I'm going to say hi again. And I hope your baby is well. Lydia says, can you please share how do we clear the energy centers? Okay. Now, having of the various and rather strange circumstances of my life, I have had to explore many modalities, go to many facilitators, get beat up left, right, and center, realize what should and should not be done. I've always been pushing the barrier, pushing the limit, just to deal with what I need to deal with. And the same also occurred in learning to deal with my own sexuality and whatever healing I needed to do down there. Me being me, facilitators would look at it and be like, wow, it's so powerful, it's so strong. I'm like, thanks. But then it was not something that they were really able to address. So for me, energy work and facilitation and clearing is something that I had to develop in a way that made sense for myself. Inspired by certain key mentors, yes, but it still had to start with me. So for me, starting to work with my own incentives required me as a person born with a uterus, with a womb, required me to understand my period. Now, obviously, it's going to be very different for men, but for a man, one of the best things I can suggest is Tai Chi, Qigong, practices that focus on the lower Dantian. If you don't know what that is, look it up. For men, that is a very powerful way to move into that energy center and to literally push energy through it. Women can, of course, do it too, but for people who are basically born with a set of male sexual organs, that is a very powerful way of going about it. For me, I had to start by understanding my period, which is why I think it's a good thing. Women are tracking their cycles, they're learning what herbs are good to take. And I must thank one of you for recommending a very good herb, which after I had done all the preliminary energy work was actually allowed to do its job. It's something called Vitex, which is chasteberry, which is really, really good for people who have too much estrogen. Josh, you can't have any. Calm down, Josh. Calm down. It's okay. Josh has got a lot of sacral chakra stuff going on. Believe me, he has a lot. But effectively, first I had to understand my own cycles and understand my relationship to my cycles, because I used to be the kind of person who would do twice the course load in university because I wanted to. Like Hermione and the time turners in Harry Potter. Yeah, that was basically me, except I didn't use the time turner. So I did twice the cost loan. And when I was really, really stressed out, I was about 19 or so. I was really stressed out. I just tell my body, can you not have a period this month? And my body would listen. And eventually I started looking at that going, that's very interesting. So I started talking to it. I started talking to my body. I started talking to the biological processes that I was experiencing, and that was a very powerful entry to that. The best way you can clear or start the process of clearing yourself is to first acknowledge what you have, you know, acknowledge the processes your body goes through, acknowledge your feelings, acknowledge whatever it is that happens to you at that time. Again, it'd be very, very, very different for for people born with, with phallus and so on and so forth. It is going to be a very different process. But I can speak for myself in saying that speaking to, identifying, observing, and just developing a relationship with that part of me was the first step. Now, in terms of deep clearing, I can tell you that unless you are aware of every little thing that you feel, no clearing is ever going to be perfect. Because more powerful than any external facilitator is your unconscious and your subconscious. And if there is something that you want to hide from yourself, most of the time people hide from themselves rather than other people. But if there's something that you really don't want others to see, you are going to close it off. So whoever you're working with can get only that far. It's not their fault. And honestly, some parts of this journey we do need to do ourselves. So the first thing is know thyself. And remember that is not from up here. That is feeling. Now, in a practical sense, am I going to say tools like yoni eggs and other toys that are made out of crystals? Some people do that, and that is a form of very powerful facilitation as well. But it is an activation of that center. It is something that can clear to a certain point, yes, but that knowing and feeling is the first step for me. Now, obviously, no one is meant to do everything themselves. But once you can actually articulate or at least know, hey, I have this feeling from somewhere, Josh, I know you need this work, Josh. Let the people listen, Josh. Josh might do a special cameo, especially since he feels like his voice needs to be heard. Compared to all of the girls, this is the one boy cat we have. He is the most vocal. The girls all sit and look very coolly when I do my work, or they ignore me and sleep, depending on their mood. But this is the first step that I would say. A bit long-winded, but it is my experience and my journey. So that hopefully is a start. Let's see. I see Jane. Hello, Jane. Michi, your baby is doing amazing. Thank you. Good, good. Radha says, please share your thoughts on what to expect for 2030. Why 2030? Is there a particular reason for that? Tell me why first. Sunny says, as someone who's in that toxic twin flame energy, how do you break it? I said that exact thing to my partner this morning. We have a 6-month-old baby. I feel like I jumped into the stream at the right time. And we are violently toxic, but stuck in that cycle. If I had anything all to send you, I would. Oh, thank you so much. But effectively, in a situation like that, first of all, willingness. You have to be utterly willing to release. When one person is not willing, because that connection benefits them or some aspect of them, even from a previous time in some way, it becomes much harder. And again, start with your own personal willingness. Be conscious with each other, because the more conscious you are about this process, then you can go to someone who does this kind of work and say, hey, I really want to do this. This person really wants to do this, but there's something here I don't understand. But when you begin with developing that consciousness within amongst yourselves first, it becomes a lot easier. Let's see. Paul says, I'm sitting in a library and just checked by chance, saying hello, hello, hello. Okay. Radha says, rumors around new Earth in 2030, and that if we survive till then, it'll be an amazing time, apparently, lol. Honest answer, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, yes, I can understand why someone would say that, because we would have many large planets shifting into new signs by that point. So, in that sense, yes, it'll be a very powerful new chapter for all of us, but it's going to feel new, but I can't tell you whether it's going to be good or not. You know, good and new are two different things. But I would say, given how powerful these shifts are, if we survive all of that together and don't create some version of hell, then it is likely to be good. But it is really going to require a complete restructuring of the planet. If humankind and human civilization was ended, it would be beautiful and great for the planet. So you can also read it that way. So honestly, it's impossible to tell. But just, as you've asked, for example, some of the big shifts that would have happened, Uranus would be in Gemini, Neptune would be in Aries, which is a very good thing, but that's actually happening before 2030. Pluto would still be in Aquarius. It is a fresh movement of new energy in. But again, is it good? Don't know. We'll just have to find out. Let's see. Michi asked, Dr. Bairavee, Kali's asteroid is conjunct Uranus. How do you translate that? What sign is it in, Michi? Hollow asks, my Saturn in Pisces return is aiding me more than I expected. Gratitude for the growth and the ability to access unconditional love. Wonderful. And that is a testament also to your work, your personal journey, your willingness to connect with spirit, and your willingness to face the bullshit. Now, the dangerous thing about Pisces energy is sometimes if you find the right entities, it'll feel like, the way transcendence and oneness and evolution and ascension is sold. It could feel like a person is going through all of these things, but at some point the addiction stops because the entity has gotten tired of you or something else has happened to it. And then you kind of go, what have I been doing in my life? That doesn't sound like what you're going through, but just as a quick note out there, Pisces is also it is a huge invitation to try and find attachment to the idea of transcendence and unconditional love. When you actually have it, you don't need anything external. It's already there. When it was brought to my attention, the earthquake hit Turkey. Is there any correlation to that? Probably not. It is just a time where many things are happening at once. So, because if it was correlated to you personally, there would be a huge element of karmic debt that you are going to have to deal with. So, it better not be connected to you, hon. But, okay, Kali's asteroid conjunct Uranus in Taurus. Well, there are many different faces of that particular goddess. But if you look at her in her most transcendent capacity, it is, ideally speaking, it is an energy that can, again, break through, whether it's what you're holding in your body, whether it's what you're hiding in the earth, break through to get the shit out of your relationship with abundance of materiality. And that process of breaking through and breaking down is what leads you further to love. That's what that's about in a nutshell, according to me. Ninth, okay, so let's see. Okay. Vernie says, so it's also, who's this now? Haruki, what's going on? Please come. You want to join the conversation? You want to say something? She agrees with you. Vernie says, so it's also a time to heal karmic bonds in all forms. Yes, you can do that. Bear in mind that sometimes healing requires total and utter dissolution. Sometimes that is the only way to heal. And that can be one of the hardest things to do, especially if you have compassion for someone. That's why they call it compassionate detachment. It's not, it feels good to be able to hold someone's hand and help them through something when you're coming from a place of love. But for people like that, who like helping, sometimes the hardest lesson is the one that is most important. You have to walk and have to say, I surrender you and my ties with you to the divine, and I have to go my own route. Sometimes that is the healing that's required. And sometimes everyone can come together in harmony. It's just very varied for everyone. Um, okay, good. Okay, that makes more sense, Michi. All right, so what other questions do we have at this time? Do we have any questions with respect to what has been said or with respect to any other general spiritual or astrological queries? Once again, remember that the specials end in under, did I say 19 hours? Well, yeah, in about 19 hours, the coupon will expire. So if you're going to book a 45-minute session, book it today, book it now. Um, for those of you who have individual questions that need my time and attention, because I need to pay bills and we need to buy cat food. Um, Alicia said, "Oh, disillusionment for healing, good gods, it down to the bone and sign you these last 3 years. It's better, but yeah, I understand. I understand. Hi, Raymond. Hello, Tamala. Nice to see all of you. So, yes, that's what I did a Valentine special in my own style. By the way, I recently discovered soap roses. I was thinking of buying something and having it come because of all of these alignments. And I looked at these really pretty roses, and apparently they were soap roses. And here I was thinking, oh, it must be a species of rose. And it turned out it was just soap. So I'm glad I didn't order it, because that would have been interesting. But yeah, there we go. So, any other questions? Let me know. Giving you a minute. Oh, Nacha says, I have just started dating someone, very nice, whom I've known for 6 months. Great. So far, so good. And I hear what you say about being aware of not perpetuating karmic cycles. Would you have any further advice? Okay. If it feels like you are, how do I put it? There's two ways of doing it. When you're with someone and there's this very natural easing and dissolution of boundaries and everything is good, it feels nice, and you're doing things that help each other and that make each other feel good, that's fantastic. But if you come together, because I know who Nacha is, if you come together and you feel like you're doing things that you don't actually want to do, things that maybe you don't even need to do on your path, that's when I would say you need to start investigating. Sunny says, I need to book a session. Well, in your particular case, I don't think I would be able to help much until both of you are actually on board with that process. Because this is something that requires both of your consent and both of your participation in your particular case. And this is what I'm like. If I'm not the right person to work with you, I will tell you, say, here's your money, here's the person, go. Because there's no point holding on to something that ain't yours, which is another big lesson of the season. Let's see. Michi says, thank you for your time and wisdom. No probs, no probs. Anything else before I log off? Now, does Josh want to say hello? Hey, has he cut it down? Okay. He's very sad. He's very sad. Josh is very sad because he doesn't want to face things. But he is also a small baby. And in this household, babies learn fast. So. Vivi says, hello, Dr. B. Hello, Vivi. I was thinking about you yesterday. How are you? I hope things are going well for you. Data says, okay, that's good advice. Very easy to follow. No worries. Vernie says, can I book a session? Yeah, no issues. Let me just type the thingamajiggy. Hang on, because you know my specific language. Let me just type the link name so that you can just get to it fast, because like I said, that coupon is expiring. Meanwhile, let me look at the comments. What advice would you give to Venus Sag? Don't follow your head. Basically, Venus in Sagittarius has a habit of falling in love with its own ideas or what it thinks is true. This is not going to give you answers. Let's see. Sunny says, I need to book a session with you. Every time I go against your advice, I regret it. On the 3rd of next, okay, this is something that's more This is something that's a bit more personal. Sunny, why don't you write to me at my email address? Because I think that we'll look at your situation further before, and I don't really want to address it here. Let's see. Tamalan says, "Oof, yes, true. I feel exposed." You asked. Vivi says, "Thanks, Dr. V. Things are okay now. Is this a good time for finding love? Not asking because it's Valentine's Day." Answered you. But hang on. Let me just, okay, for the sessions, hang on. Hang on. So for those of you who want to book the sessions, the coupon expires within a day, so do it now. My email is the skypriestess@gmail.com. Remember because someone else took it just without it. So just bear that in mind. So in response to Vivi's question, is this a good time for finding love? It can be a very good time to find love if you feel spiritually guided and are honest, are being truthful and honest to yourself. And you're not trying to hide. You're also not jumping into things because of, unresolved emotions or traumas, but you actually really just feel called. And as I've answered previously, whenever you're with this potential person, you actually do things that are good, that are healthy, that are joyful, that are fun. Even if it means working through, certain hard things together, it doesn't necessarily feel like a burden that's been thrown on your head. So if you find a connection like this, that's great. But at the same time, it goes the other way. This is a time where people can basically just rush into things because of the idea of love and end up finding someone that maybe on the surface looks like the idea, but in reality is very different. Because less about your free choice and will and your heart's desires and more about karma, which is something that you do not have to endure unless you really want to. So that is your answer in a nutshell. Um, yeah, Radha says, definitely no past traumas like mine, huh? Well, we just had a session, so I know what she's referring to. I think Hanuki wants to say hello. Hanuki, do you want to say hello? Because my daughter, the white one, she has had to work through a lot of issues to do with idealizations and romance. The kind of the kind of people she picks for me are complete morons. So her taste in men, her taste in everything else is amazing, but her taste in men is pretty shit. Like pretty shit. So yeah, each one of them have their traumas, they have their karmas, they have their past lives. So yes. Hang on, I'm typing in the coupon code, and that is for the 45-minute session. And yes, oh, you got her? She's behind you, but she's not letting me catch her. Okay, you want to say hello or not? She's been called out. If you think you're being called out, yes, all the little cats in this household have been called out because of their bullshit. We hold them to very high standards. So, is Hanuki the one who is in love with the vet? Yes, we had to switch vets though. She goes for older men very often, and does goo eyes, especially when they've got streaks of white hair they're kind of a little bit cool and aloof. She doesn't really like salt of the earth people. She likes guys that have a little bit of a thing going on. So no. And her choices for me, oh my God, no. This girl, if you let her, will choose everything for me. What I eat, what music I compose, what clothes I wear. She has an opinion on everything. And she will show her opinion with her paws. So, yes, we know.
Just to be fair, Hanki likes the type of people you like in your teenage years.
Yes, that's true.
20s.
That's true. She goes for the type of people that I liked in the first 2 decades of my life.
All magicians and sociopaths.
Thanks. I have a Mars in Pisces. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. I did a lot of work. Let me see if I can get her on this. There, you can see her. Hanuki, there she looked away. As soon as she saw the camera, she looked away. Hanuki, do you want to say anything to anybody? Juice is currently heartbroken. But yeah. So yes, Dacha says she likes the avoidant ones. Yeah, her mommy had Mars and Pisces, so yeah. Raven says, great to hear you and your family. The laughter, brother, fam, lots of love. Yes, nice thing. I think we are seeing Juice. He's coming.
Do you want to see Josh? I just want to freak him out.
Is he? Oh. Well, Juice, which is also what we call Josh, his name is Joshua. But Joshua he has not been neutered. And so Joshua ensures that he has a healthy expression. So one time I picked Joshua up and I wasn't looking down there. And then I felt this sticky thing on my head. And then I was like, oh dear God. But yes, Joshua has, I think, I think I've looked at web pages I never thought I would look at in my life. Cat masturbation. How often is normal? And apparently other cat parents have the same question. But yes, my eyes have been opened to things that I have never thought that I would ever go look at before, thanks to Josh. So, yes. But yes, it's love. It's love in all ways. Josh just doesn't realize what species I am, I think. But then again, it is arguable if I'm human in many ways. But having said that, do we have any other questions? Radha says, oh my God, your past lover, perhaps. You don't even want to know. You don't even want to know. Yeah. Anytime I even talk to a guy, he'll be like, he gets really upset. No, I'm not allowed to talk to anyone. So, yeah. Trust me. It's been a journey. So, having said that, I don't see any further questions with respect to the work. And yeah, take care. Very many blessings. Hopefully, this gives you an idea of some of the good things and some of the not so great things to watch out for this Valentine season. And yeah, that's about it. Take care. Lots of love. Ciao, ciao for now. Bye bye.